Hey guys, it's Abigail, and usually I make videos on like where psychology and technology meet, actually, I feel like this kind of fits in that category, so let's just keep going. What are the effects of these influencer-fan relationships? And like the kind like Colleen Ballinger obviously had. At least you're having fun. This is what inspired me to make this video. However, in no way, shape, or form do I believe that she is the only one who's had relationships of this nature with her fans. I really don't think that she is. I wouldn't doubt that this is actually probably pretty prevalent, and I think a lot of these cases are going to start to emerge within the coming years as we go. This is going to be the psychology, the process, a total analysis of grooming, especially so when it comes to YouTubers grooming their fans, especially so when the perpetrator is a woman.
We're taught that predators are old men in alleys. You're not told that a friend, a socialite, a woman can be a predator.
So we're going to look at all of that today in depth. And we're also going to look at how being involved in this very specific form of grooming, so such as by an internet celebrity or by a woman in general, how it works, why it matters, and why I think it's really important that we look a whole lot deeper into it now before it gets worse. So, we know of more instances of celebrities having close relationships with their diehard younger fans. It's not always malicious, and nor would I ever suggest that celebrities can't have absolutely wonderful, innocent, real, normal relationships with fans, or be a wonderful influence, or be a good role model, right? Nevertheless, the social media content creator, right, the YouTuber, is inherently different from a traditional celebrity. They're much more relatable, they're way more accessible, they bring you into their real lives, you're watching them in your home all the time, seeing their stories, seeing their tweets. They're accessible in ways that typical celebrities just aren't, right? And the thing is, YouTube in the grand scheme of things hasn't really been around all that long. I mean, it kind of has, but dinosaurs were like a long time ago, you know? So not that long. And it's all pretty new. At least the idea of the mega internet celebrity is pretty new. We are the first to grow, or me, right, and the kids now, we're the first to grow up in this era of the social media world. We're the ones who may have felt so lucky to be close friends or given significant attention in some way by their absolute idol. This is something that just like was not a thing before now, like at all. So I think going forward, as these children are growing up and realizing, you know, they might have been harmed in a very complicated and painful way. As I think now they're starting to get old enough to be able to understand these relationships in a different light, looking at them as an adult.
DMs have been starting to be leaked by members in this group chat because they're all seeing how inappropriate it was now.
Right, which is a very different way of seeing things, and this comes with age, this comes with experience, and this comes with knowing about it, which is hopefully what I hope I can help with today too. These are the relationships and the people that they hold in the absolute highest regard and are also the source of so much of their turmoil, whether they realize it or not. So first, although this video is meant to be more broad, I want to say I have the absolute highest respect for Adam, Becky, Johnny, and all of the rest who have been brave enough to come forward in regards to Colleen Ballinger. I genuinely think Adam has saved so many other kids. So now maybe they'll realize that even your idol, even somebody who is so nice to you, even somebody everybody loves, could be extremely, extremely dangerous. And his words, I think, will encourage so many others who are currently in situations like this to hopefully see those relationships in a little bit of a different light, to question them. It may maybe like plant the seed of doubt. Now, that being said, we need to look at a few important things in order to understand this specific process. Both how the star curates these types of relationships, why they choose the children that they choose, why they have these relationships, what do they get from them. I also want to look at a much less well-known phenomenon of grooming being done by a woman, by a female, because typically the landscape is very different. The gratification that comes from it is the same, identical, there's no difference. The harm caused is the same, but the mechanisms are a bit different, and it's something that I think we really have no idea how to recognize. So let's start here. The sexual grooming model. Wow, this is okay. Sorry. This consists of 5 stages. First is victim selection. Next is gaining access and isolating the child, followed by trust development, followed by desensitization to sexual and physical content. Then, last step is maintenance afterwards and during. the continuation of the abuse. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical interactions for the groomer to gain gratification from these things either way. So we're going to have a look into female grooming as a concept in depth as well. When the grooming of a child is occurring by a female, maybe a family member, maybe a teacher, maybe a church leader, maybe their favorite YouTuber, it can get really complicated. Societally, the actions of a woman grooming a younger male child will typically be viewed in a totally different light than if the roles were reversed and it was an older man with a younger girl. When it's a older woman, when it's a woman doing the grooming, a lot of the times, sometimes society will view the kid as lucky. They might get approval socially for this relationship from their friends, like, hell yeah, bro, get it, she's hot, goddamn, you know? And the thing is, and I want to emphasize, the harm is exactly the same, and the gratification that the abuser is getting is the same. Gender is arbitrary in that case, however the mechanisms are different, so it's way harder to recognize. And we have literally no research on this at all. There's one study I found. One study, and that's it. And that study pointed out the fact that there is an absolute lack of research into female grooming, how it works, the specific nature of it, the details that are a little bit different, but again, the facts are the same. So this just creates another layer, in my opinion, of inner turmoil and denial and pain for the child. With that in mind, let's look a little bit deeper. All aboard. Yikes. Oh God. So it has been postulated that there are two types of female sexual abusers that may use grooming tactics. Two different subtypes of groomers. First is the sex trafficker, and second is the teacher. I would argue there should be a third type, which I would call probably the influencer. Right? But we're just going to go with the two that have already been established as of 2021 as the two types of female groomers that are recognized in this research. However, like I said, I think there should be a category called the influencer. In regards to the sex trafficker prototype, women involved in sexual crimes like this are typically filling a very specific role. This is the kind of thing we see with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine. This is the kind of thing that we see with Andrew Tate and his top girl. A woman going and kidnapping a child, bringing it back to the man, right? So what we're seeing is that women are the ideal recruiters for sexual predators because women are inherently much more trustworthy. It's the same reason all of our robots are feminine, is because it's inherently much more trustworthy, especially if the woman is attractive and successful. I would even argue that successful is more important than being attractive because success, like having a successful career, successful social circle, a bunch of friends, a bunch of, it kind of acts as a verification. Like this person has been, in a way, approved by the world. They're verified in a sense, which increases the trust to dangerous levels pretty much right off the bat, which is super dangerous. But obviously male sexual predators know this. That's why they use women for recruitment. That's the sex trafficker, okay? However, that's not really as relevant right now, so we're going to move on to the second subtype, the teacher. This is, I think, more in line with what we're seeing in regards to what's been going on. In this setting, the teacher-lover typology involves a female perpetrator using a position of power to continue abusing their student. And often, these women will actually view their sexual abuse towards the child as a real romantic relationship or a real friendship. So the woman is almost, in a way, delusional over the nature of the relationship. She's convincing herself, in order to continue to inflict this abuse, that this relationship is real, that this is either a real friendship or a real romantic relationship. The problem is you cannot have a real romantic relationship or a real friendship of this nature with a kid, with a child. Children cannot consent. It is not a real relationship. But they will convince themselves that the child is equally as invested as they are, if not more so it's okay. But it isn't. Does that make sense? So since there's been absolutely no research exploring identifications of grooming behaviors when the offender is a female, there's literally none. We know nothing. We're just in the dark, okay? In this study, it was found that about 14% of participants, only 14%, knew what sexual grooming was or could recognize it. They were given a bunch of vignette scenarios, right? And basically were asked to decide what they think of this person, if they think this person is a child molester. And in this study, they found that individuals, most of them couldn't identify it at all, right? But of the ones who could, they were only able to identify it if grooming behaviors were present and the perpetrator was male. Nobody recognized it when the same grooming behaviors were present and the gender of the offender in this story, it's the same story, was a female. Nobody recognized it. That's why this is so important, guys. That's why this is so important. So first, I want to look at an episode of Dreading, one about Stephen Collins. So let me give you a little background. This one's about Stephen Collins, who is a very successful actor, very attractive, super famous. He was in Star Trek, okay? He's an OG classic, and he turned out to have groomed his own fans. And I'm going to show you the clip and we're going to go through it together, but he goes through what he experienced, his experience from when he was younger, where he was groomed by a female friend of their family. Groomers, more often than not, will have experienced sexual abuse or grooming when they were younger. Almost always. However, that being said, that is 1 out of 1,000 that do not go on to become groomers. Let me make sure I get this straight for you. Okay, most groomers have been groomed in their past. However, very few people who are groomed will go on to become groomers. What I just told you about Stephen Collins growing up to become an abuser himself. So I want you to disregard for a minute. I want you to just disregard that just for a moment, because when we're looking at this first clip, we're talking about a 12-year-old child. He's done no wrong at this point. He did not deserve a single thing that happened to him. I want you to try to separate that from who he grew into and what he became, because this is a really, really perfect example of a specific type of grooming by a female, and he explains this in a way that I think will be really helpful in sort of setting the setting and helping us to make sure we're coming from the right place of understanding.
Someone in my life, when I was between the ages of about 10 and 15, an older woman who repeatedly exposed herself to me. And I think that distorted my perception in such a way that some part of me thought, because I never felt like I was molested. It never occurred to me. That word never crossed my mind as a 10 to 15-year-old boy. It was.
So you'll notice that he says it never even occurred to him that this could be molestation. And this is really, really common when it comes to male victims of older female offenders. And especially considering there was no physical touch, it's all sort of could be explained away by this woman to him. So the feelings he's experiencing are the same as any female child would be feeling in that same situation had the roles been reversed. But he's also, on top of that, having to struggle with the idea that this woman, this Miss Robinson type, could never be a predator.
It was a very intense experience. But I think somewhere in my brain, I got the equation of, well, this isn't so terrible. I mean, this person who I trust is doing it. Being in various states of undress or complete undress.
And this happened on several occasions?
Yes, quite a few times.
He's having to convince himself that this isn't so bad in order to endure it, or even convincing himself that he wants this, that he likes this. This woman is disgusting and a predator, and she is getting sexual gratification from exposing herself to a young boy, which is disturbing.
In his mind, this was a trusted adult, someone who would never hurt him, and he had no idea how to comprehend what was happening. And much like most victims of this manner of abuse, his confusion led him to thinking that what was happening was special between him and this mystery woman, their own little secret.
So, the female grooming process. Let's start with the stages, because it works in stages. Grooming is a very long period of time. Grooming usually is something that occurs over a period of years, so it's a process. There's stages, there's changes in mentality, there's changes in reasoning, justifications, everything like that changes as time progresses, especially as the child gets older. However, there is some specific stages that are consistent in all aspects of female grooming. So, first is the self-groom, right? The self-groom. Previous studies have argued that offenders go through what's called a self-grooming process prior to engaging in sexual acts with children. Sexual acts can be physical, actual sexual acts like physically, or it can just be sexual content or sexual gratification from speaking to the child of this nature. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical. This process involves justifying, rationalizing, or denying the wrongfulness of their behaviors. So they know it's wrong deep down, and they know that, and they start feeling this wrongness within inside them. And in order to continue to act on their desires, right, they have to be able to get around this mental block or this moral thing that's jumping out and saying, hey, you're a predator, they're like, no, I don't want to be a predator, right? Who wants to be a predator? Nobody wants to be a predator. Nobody does. So they gotta justify, rationalize, and do a little bit of mental gymnastics, which we call cognitive distortions. Oftentimes these distortions help legitimize being sexually involved with the child and to continue to maintain offending. Otherwise, the guilt will get to you. The embarrassment, the questioning of, what am I doing here? And why am I doing this? Am I hurting somebody? So they have to sort of rationalize this. And some ways to do this typically are by telling themselves that the child wants this. The child is enjoying this. The child likes this. And typically, at least at the start, the child will. Because you're giving them special attention, gifts, inclusion, they're making them feel so important, making them feel so seen, and you're typically going to be choosing the children that are most vulnerable to these types of things, right? The next stage is what we're going to call the environmental grooming. This is broken into stages. So the first is victim selection. This includes identifying vulnerable children. We're talking about children that have poor relationships with their parents, or are neglected by their parents, or just don't necessarily get along with their parents. We're talking about those who don't have a lot of friends. They struggle with friends, maybe they don't have any. And those who have already been victimized. So if the child has been a victim of sexual abuse before, it's really horrible to say it, but that's gonna be somebody you probably wanna choose, because that child is the most likely to attach to you. Children who attach to internet celebrities, deeply attached, right, are vulnerable. We can tell this just by the fact that they are so attached to an adult that is not in their life. If they had healthy relationships with their parents, a great support system, tons of friends, they were involved in school or activities or whatever, they wouldn't be spending all their time online, and they wouldn't be attaching to an internet celebrity to this degree. If a child is attaching to an internet celebrity to the degree that they're making fan accounts, to the degree that they're spending all of their time online, trying to interact with this person, be a part of this person's life, it's parasocial, but they're children, so making a fan account. And such a big fan of this adult that this adult is basically their only friend in reality, because they are, in order to be online enough to be a super fan, they're probably not out with friends, right? If they have time to make a fan account, they're probably not out with friends. Their parents probably aren't monitoring what they're doing or monitoring their internet access or worried about them, right? Because we should be a little bit worried. If you were famous and you saw there was a child who was constantly just comments on every single one of your videos, watches every single one of your live streams, is constantly online and has like a fan account dedicated to you that they spend all their time on, any normal, reasonable adult would see that and say, that child is vulnerable, there's something wrong, right? This child needs somebody in their life, actually in their life, that can help them. But at the same time, any reasonable adult would also say, I am not that person. That's where we start to get this kind of thing where, this child is in need, this child is vulnerable, something's wrong, obviously, because they're spending all their time online and they're making fan accounts for me and they're this attached to me. They should be attached to somebody in their life, somebody good, somebody who can talk to them and help them and, be a part of their life. I'm not going to say, oh, I should go and be a part of this child's life. See, that's a difference between a normal person and somebody who's more inclined to groom a child. Somebody who is inclined to grooming behaviors would choose this child as their victim because they are the perfect victim. So as far as victim selection, sex offenders have been found to insert themselves into careers, organizations, and places where children frequent, specifically vulnerable children if possible. Studies have also found that offenders groom significant individuals in the child's lives as well. This brings us to the next stage, which is grooming the child's family. This is surprising, and a lot of people don't realize that this happens. It's pretty common in women, when female offenders, is to groom the parents, right? So in this case, the case of the content creator, so they will likely at some point speak with, be open with, and gain the trust of the parents, such as relating to them as fellow parents, appearing like a trusted adult in this child's life. In the event that the creator does live shows, they would absolutely need to gain the trust of the parents because they need to bring their kids to the show. or to even have the children be allowed to watch their content, right? Much more so to allow their child to actually have communication with this person. The groomer needs to make the parents like them, because you want your children to hang around people you like. If the groomer cannot make the parents like them, or if the groomer is not trusted by the parents, that presents an extremely large obstacle to achieving the goal that they want, to getting to be able to get this gratification through this child that they need, that they think they need. Then this parent would be an obstacle in that case. So they have to groom the parents as well, make the parents trust them, and that is really, really effed up. So in that way, in this case, the parent will never see it coming. So this was a screenshot shared on Twitter by Johnny Silvestri, who was one of Colleen Ballinger's victims, and it's a message that his father had sent him after everything about Colleen came out. His father said, "Hey Johnny, tons of discussion on family chat. To summarize, I think we are all feeling that we let our guards down too much and should have protected you more. I know that in some ways we may have protected you too much, but that's a fine line that's very hard to see. As you read through it all, know that it all comes from a place of love. Love for son, younger brother, and friend. I am so proud of you. You have a strength of character that many lack. Stick to what you know to be true in your heart. Love, Dad." The parent will probably blame themselves for not seeing it coming, but you have to remember, they were never your friend. You know, they just wanted access to your child. So this person will get to know the parents personally. And also the parents will be kept completely in the dark in regards to the real nature of the conversations that the groomer is having with the child. So it's really, really a complicated thing, but effectively they groom an entire bubble and then they place the child inside of it, where the child has nobody around them anymore who's gonna see the red flags that this person is emitting, and at the same time, they're gonna be convincing them that the nature of their conversation should be kept secret. Now we're on to the third stage, which is to initiate grooming the child. So remember how I said that sex offenders will typically, put themselves into situations, careers, jobs, and things like that where children frequent? In this case, in the case of the content creator or the influencer, they're probably going to make videos that will appeal to younger viewers, just like a teacher may get a job in middle school or a church leader will lead the youth group. And they're going to put themselves in positions where they have excuses to communicate with children directly and to have a lot of influence over children and power over children. And additionally, if they can, to be able to touch them, physically any way that, if they have a job where that is an opportunity for them, they're going to take that. It's really messed up. It's disgusting, but let's keep going. Grooming is a long-term effort that instills the importance of keeping the sexual abuse a secret. In this context, touting maybe your fear of cancellation and, oh my God, I'm gonna get canceled. If anybody ever found out about this, I would get canceled. Can you believe that? And of course, the child loves this person. This person is probably the most important thing in this child's life, and they don't know it's the source of all their pain. So they're not gonna want anything bad to happen to this predator, ever. So if a child is being groomed and the grooming is discovered, not because the child realized it was wrong yet, they will, but it usually takes years for that to happen, right? It takes them growing completely, usually up. But in the case that the grooming is discovered by, say, a parent or something like that, typically the child will go to extreme lengths to protect this person from any harm, including the law, including going to jail. The child does not want this person to go to jail. The child doesn't want this person to get canceled. The child doesn't want anything bad to happen to this person. They love this person. It's so complicated and difficult to process. And to put a child in a situation where now they need to process this is abusive in itself. They will also likely threaten to end the relationship with the child or say that if anybody finds out about this, you won't be able to talk to me anymore. If somebody finds out about this, I won't be able to talk to you. I can never talk to you again, or I'm gonna go to jail and you're never gonna see me again, or I'm gonna kick you out of our group chat and block you, and I'm gonna have everybody else block you. This relationship is the most important thing to the child because the groomer has made it that way. So they've made it that way intentionally, and now they're going to make sure that the child knows any sort of stepping out of line will mean the end of this relationship, and they will be alone. They will also likely offer the children future career opportunities, right? Whether that's, you can be in my vlogs, you can help me edit my videos, you can come to my shows, help out with the live shows, you can stay on the tour bus. So I showed you the text between Johnny and his dad, and like I said again, he is one of Colleen Ballinger's victims, but this is a letter or a diary entry that he wrote back when like he had just met Colleen and everything was still good. Because it always starts out good. Remember that? From this letter, this was back in 2018, before he was when he was invited to Colleen's bus tour. And he said, "So we are officially starting a new journey. I am currently on a flight heading to Philly to start bus tour with Colleen. I'm excited. My nerves have calmed down and now I'm just ready to go get this show on the road. It honestly still feels very surreal and I'm not sure when it will fully sink in. I'm sure once I land and meet up with them, it'll feel more real. Right now I'm just kind of in a dream state. Like, who could have ever imagined this happening? Like, maybe in my wildest teenage dreams, but I never thought it would actually become a reality. But here we are. I really hope it goes well, and I'm praying it leads to more opportunity. I'm just so grateful for all of this. I feel like my life is changing for the better, and I'll be the first to say, I fucking deserve this. It really does prove to me that everything does happen for a reason, even the bad things. You just can't let the bad things get in the way of what you deserve. So here's to new beginnings, Bus Tour 2018, Johnny." So you can see just the innocence and the excitement and the happiness and how he believes this is going to lead to so many new opportunities. And for the record, it definitely did not. They're going to tell the child, though, that this future career opportunities will evaporate if anything ever happens. If they step out of line, or the fact of the predatory nature of the groomers' discussions are ever discovered, this child will lose their future. The future that they really likely want, because this again also is the person they look up to the most. They're a super fan, okay? They look up to this person so much. They want nothing more than to be like this person. You think they're gonna risk or want to lose the opportunities that this person is promising them? I want to say though, these opportunities never come to fruition. Ever, okay? Because once that child is finally old enough to utilize this opportunity, the groomer will have moved on, because you're no longer their type, and that can cause so much heartbreak and just awful, right? It is devastating, and they did nothing wrong, they just grew up. But this will often lead child to, want to dress younger, act younger, infantilizing themselves to try and still appeal to what the groomer likes, which is so messed up, isn't it? If that doesn't make you want to throw up, I don't know what does. So all of the threats are, in addition to also making them feel extremely special, included, and important, a feeling a child will become deathly afraid of losing. More so, this super close relationships with their idols always start so innocent, yet slowly grow into something sexually laced and eventually completely unrecognizable. Okay, so what I'm about to tell you comes from a study done I think last year with 50 women. 50 women were involved in the study. All 50 are convicted sexual offenders who are willing to do these interviews and be a part of this study, so that we could learn a little bit more about the female offender, because like I said, there's absolutely no research other than this study. This is it. So here's what we learned, and this is straight out of that established peer-reviewed research. I am not out, and this is going to sound really like I'm just hating on a specific trending person right now, but no, this is from research that was 2 years or a year before any of this information ever came out. This is established scientific research. As it progresses, the abuser will begin sending sexually suggestive messages, typically disguised as jokes or inside jokes, then possibly requesting photos or videos from the child or sharing pornographic content directly with the child. That's from that study. So the most important thing to remember when it comes to female groomers is a lot of the times these types of things will be disguised with humor, with jokes, although it's not a joke, right? It's disguised as a joke. So for instance, they may send you a really ugly pair of underwear, right? Really, really ugly. Say it's got Shrek on it or something. And they're laughing, they're saying, "Oh my God, this is so funny. This is so funny. This is the funniest, ugliest pair of underwear I've ever seen. Like, oh my God, isn't that hilarious? Put them on, show me, take a picture, spin around, give me a little video. This is the most hilarious thing ever." And the child's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And they do that, and then they send that video over, and they're all laughing about it, and they don't realize the groomer's not laughing when they receive this video. The groomer has just successfully manipulated and deceived you into sending child pornography. Yeah, because no adult would find that funny. No adult without something wrong would find that funny, or ever request those photos, or ever obtain the materials, or make that kind of joke in the first place. Also, inside jokes and pornography. A lot of the time, children will be first introduced to pornographic content from somebody that is grooming them. It will be their first introduction into pornographic content. And usually these types of things will be sent as jokes as well. This is from a study, this is research, okay? Usually these things will be sent in the form of jokes. The reason for that being that they don't want to be explicitly sexual with the child and make them uncomfortable and they back away. You kind of got to make it so it's not, so it looks innocent. You want to make it look innocent. In order to do that, usually you might send them Scooby-Doo porn or some shit and say, ha ha ha, isn't this funny? This is like Scooby-Doo being inappropriate. But you just sent a child porn, and there's a reason that you did that, isn't there? Now, for this relationship with their idols, the parents likely will know, at least know of this person. However, they won't understand the nature of the conversations. But if you're a parent, it is automatically, I would say, you should really be concerned if you find somebody your age that is really likable and really awesome that now is talking to your child privately. Just make sure you're reading through these kind of conversations. So they will at least know of this person, at least have maybe taken their child to a live show or, I don't know, watch the videos with the kid, right? Maybe they watch the videos on their own. Maybe the parents themselves are a fan. More often than not, they will have had conversations or at least a friendship with the person that is with the groomer. And the purpose of this friendship was for unabridged access to the child, but it's most important that the parents don't know this or ever figure this out. So the parents and the families of these children are totally unaware of the nature of the relationship, that it's no longer innocent, and the child now has to carry this secret. This will typically distance the child emotionally from the parents and from their families, from their friends, because the child is carrying these secrets now because they feel like they're lying to them or they feel like they're doing something wrong. Because even if they're told it's okay, even if they partake in this behavior, there's a part of the child that knows it's wrong. Not that the child should know what to do about that or that they ever will act on that, because the groomer's telling them nothing's wrong. So they're fighting this part of themselves that is their intuition because they're too young to be able to utilize this intuition correctly. But as they grow up, that changes. Either way, the child will usually begin isolating themselves more and becoming ever more invested in the groomer and their relationship with the groomer, which will become all they really feel like they have. Because the groomer is the only one that knows this side of the child's life, a serious and huge fundamental part of their life. The kid may even end up building a slight resentment to their parents over time for being so oblivious or for not protecting them. The growth of the internet has led researchers and practitioners to suggest revisions to include sexual abuse behaviors like non-contact offenses. So understanding grooming behaviors generally and how it progresses through an offense is extremely important in recognizing it, preventing it, and getting that shit out of here. Groth and Birnbaum back in 1979 were the scientists that coined the term grooming. So they're the OGs. And basically, here's a quote from their paper back from 1979. Quote, "In most cases, except those involving abuse by a stranger, the perpetrator involved children in sexual abuse through a grooming process in which a combination of kindness, attention, material enticement, special privilege, and coercion are expertly applied." And this creator-fan specific type of abuse is that special privilege, material enticement, all of that is super, super important here, right? Imagine a more special privilege than being in a group chat with Ryan Gosling or something. I mean, imagine if I was in a group chat with Ryan Gosling, bro, I would feel like nobody could say shit to me ever again. I'm set for life with that. That is a special privilege for me as an adult, as a grown woman who would love to be in a chat with Ryan Gosling. For these kids, this is the most special privilege you could ever give them. And it's something that you can also take away. And that's another extremely powerful component of grooming, is not just the fact that they utilize and give the child so much kindness, so much attention, so much material enticement, special privileges, and they coerce them, but they have the power to take these things away from the child, which the child will grow to rely on because the abuser is isolating them further, bringing them further and further away from everything good in their life. Material enticement could be sending your fan some cute racy underwear and calling them and naming them on a live stream and saying, "You want these, Adam?" That is a wonderful example of material enticement. It's very special privilege. You have Colleen Ballinger, Miranda Sings, you have her underwear. Holy shit. She must trust me so much. She must like me so much. No, you're likable. It's not that, but, you know, she likes you a little too much. Now, the 50 women that were involved in the study I was mentioning a little bit earlier were all convicted sexual offenders. These women have acknowledged their culpability in the offense and the wrongfulness of their behavior and have expressed at least some degree of, accountability, right? Ukulele free. And 13 of them reported feeling sexual attraction for a child, but once the sexual activity began, or the sexual conversations began, they often attempted to rationalize their behavior by suggesting that the acts were consensual or initiated by the victim. Therefore, not intentionally harmful. This initiated by the victim defense is extremely common, and extremely telling. No normal adult should ever have to even think of using this line of defense because they aren't engaging in these conversations and behaviors in the first place.
So in the process of Colleen Ballinger trying to throw me under the bus to make Trisha happy and be like, but it was him, not me, she acknowledges that she was engaging in conversations with the distribution of with a 14-year-old when she was in her 30s, which
we see this in two separate occasions quite perfectly. First is with Onision.
Just in case this is your first time online, Onision, or Greg, he goes by Greg Jackson, in 2019, he was 34, and he was accused of predatory grooming alongside his 25-year-old husband, Kai, by a woman named Sarah. Sarah was a big fan of Onision, says that she became close with his husband personally after joining an online forum for Onision fans. And this is something very common when it comes to creators grooming fans, is they're going to go for the super fans, right? The ones with fan accounts, the ones on the forums. And at that time, Sarah had just turned 14. She was barely 14. Over the years, she began living with Onision and Kai for periods of time between those years where at time both him and Kai molested the girl. And the reason that she was living with them was because her home situation had deteriorated so badly.
Honest about the relationships I've been in was all over YouTube, and yet you ignored that and then of course act like the victim as if you didn't know what you were getting into.
There was a vibe and we felt like something might happen someday. I don't know.
Greg wanted me to make a video. I was really uncomfortable with that, and he said, what I want is a 30-second video of you explaining bullet point, I wasn't groomed. Allegations against my friend Kai regarding me. I felt like I either had to make that video or I was going to lose Kai as my best friend, and I was never going to be able to go back to that house. Greg knew where this was going. From the moment he said, why don't we just wait for Sarah to turn 18, when I was 15. I could see it in his eyes that he knew what he was doing.
But then Sarah said that she would only sign an NDA if she got what she wanted. And unfortunately, a few months prior, she joked about being able to destroy our lives if she wanted to. But once she said, I'm only going to sign this NDA if you sleep with me, was the clear message there. We felt pressured, like we had no choice, because I had remembered that comment prior of her saying she could ruin my life if she wanted to.
You can safely assume that you can flip pretty much everything he says around and you'd be a lot closer to the truth. He was the one pressuring her, more than likely. He was the one that waved the power to ruin her life. I mean, you can pretty much just take everything he says and assume it's the opposite.
We felt pressured, like we had no choice, because I had remembered that comment prior of her saying she could ruin my life if she wanted to. So we slept with her. I slept with her and she performed oral on Kai.
My and Lainey's ex is such a f***ing loser, criminal, scumbag piece of...
And next is with Colleen.
Your goal is to ruin the life of the person you despise while you dramatize your lies and monetize their demise.
Colleen Ballinger is yet again using Adam McIntyre as a scapegoat to try get out of her own bullshit.
She sent just different photos and different positions of me.
Same ones Johnny got, I got.
I did ask her about these a couple weeks ago before there was the proof, so to speak, right?
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear how Colleen Ballinger explained that to Trisha.
And she assured me that she had never sent photos of me.
That actually, it was all Adam, and Adam was sending them.
That this one fan who was underage at the time,
me,
would send photos to her. Oh. She's like, no, he was a fan. He sent photos to me, and he was obsessed with you.
Onision's was worse, I guess. But we see this both times, and what happens is once facts have emerged that are undeniable, right? Once facts and evidence occurs that cannot be argued with, these conversations did occur. The only course of action that the groomer has in order to hopefully absolve themselves of this is to say that the child initiated it, the child wanted it, the child asked them for it, and they were not trying to hurt anybody. The kid wanted them to do this. And it is the most messed up defense that as soon as they're using that same defense to the public, openly, that defense, oh yeah, I did that, but the kid wanted it. Like, okay, they're using this defense now publicly and openly. More than likely, for years, they have been convincing the child of this exact fact to protect themselves. Because admitting to yourself that you wanted this from the child and that a child cannot consent is really, it might get in the way of your getting what you want, you know? It'll get in the way of that. If you got any sort of rationality. But if you can convince yourself that the child wanted it, and the best way to do that is to convince the child themselves that they want it, which is where so much inner turmoil comes from, and so much of the harm and so much of the pain is because a very core component of grooming, one of arguably, I'd say the most important, is convincing the child that they are equally culpable, equally at fault for what is happening to them. Doing this not only prevents them from ever speaking on it, from ever talking about it, but also they are going to continuously, for the rest of this entire time until they get in therapy eventually, they are going to battle themselves over how horrible they are and what is wrong with them and why they are no longer innocent. And that it was their choice. It never is. Children cannot consent. Children cannot initiate. And any grown adult, if a child initiates or wants something, most grown adults would not even ever consider. The most would probably call CPS and see what's going on, right? In that case. But that is so rare, if ever happens, and it definitely does not happen in these situations. It's definitely not what's happening here. And let me just tell you a little bit about how horrible this specific thing is, where they are, because over the years, the entire grooming process, they are also convincing the child that the child wants this in order to absolve their guilt and to keep this a secret. This is from a study called Victims' Voices, The Impact of Online Grooming and Sexual Abuse by Helen Whittle, Catherine Hamilton, and Anthony Beach. So links have been found between young people who experience sexual solicitation online and the experience of substance abuse or addictions and depression later in life. Unsurprisingly, every single discussion about outcomes of the abuse on the individual were negative. At no point in time has abuse led to career opportunities. At no time has it given you a career as a famous YouTuber with your, even if the child wants it, so-called in your mind consensual, which it cannot be, by the way, because children cannot consent. But if you want to pretend that it was consensual, and then in that case, you cannot argue with the fact that this abuse will never have a positive outcome on the child. The victims in this study talked about the negative psychological effects that they dealt with and the fact that this abuse will resonate with them for the rest of their lives. In particular, there was one victim who was involved in a sexting case, and she was 12 when the sexting was occurring, and then she was 13 at the time of the interview, so very, very young, right? She discussed how she would never forget the abuse and it's ruined her life. This is from a 13-year-old. She hasn't even lived her life yet, and she already feels it's ruined. She says, advice to anyone out there that wants to do it, and by do it, you mean just talk to adults like this, don't. It ruins your life. Because if you're like physically like kind of R-word or hit or something, fair enough, that's physical. But it's not mentally, because you're thinking, I let them do that to me. This is from a 13-year-old girl. Victims in 2 cases in this reported self-harming after the abuse. One of the victims described it as a way of coping with missing the offender. Feelings of aggression and lack of confidence were also mentioned by 2 of the victims when they discussed how they felt after the abuse had ended. They got panic attacks, were unable to ever trust others, and felt a sense that they lost their innocence. There we also found no evidence in this study to suggest that people who were abused offline experienced any greater negative outcomes than those who were abused online only. So it seems to be quite similar, if the same. Children's low disclosure rates can be attributed to threats, fear of the perpetrator, loss of opportunity, or a lack of understanding of what child abuse is. And the most common is because they have a very trusted relationship with the perpetrator. So let's go back to the similarities between Onision and Colleen's defense lines of the child wanted it, the child asked for it, the child sent it in the first place if we're talking about pornographic content, the child asked me to have sex with them if we're talking about Onision. They use techniques and behaviors to obtain and maintain the trust of their victims to continue to conceal and prolong this kind of sexual abuse that was getting gratification to the offenders. Again, in this same context, let's look back at this study with the 50 convicted sexual offending women. These techniques, this is from the study, included sending and receiving inappropriate texts and media, providing gifts as bribes, acting as a confidant or a sympathetic listener, using threats, playing secret sex games, soliciting sexual knowledge, utilizing code communication, introducing the child to pornography and watching pornography with the child, and gradually exposing the child to sexual touch. So I want to go back to a very, very important one of those. Solicited sexual knowledge. This is something that when I first saw the screenshots of the Colleen Ballinger conversations, I, at first, was just confused. I saw the period one first, I believe, and I was thinking, I was kind of giving her the benefit of the doubt with this when I first saw the screenshot. I didn't watch the video first, I saw the screenshot on Twitter, so I didn't have any context. But I was thinking and I was reading it and I was like, that's weird, that's gross. But also, maybe this is for a Miranda Sings video, maybe she just is looking for like content or something, it's not that weird. Then I saw the virgin question. And then I saw the tampon questions and the tampon videos and asking the children to talk about their sexual experiences, to talk about if they touched themselves and things like that. What that is specifically outlined in this psychological study. It's considered soliciting sexual knowledge. Now, we additionally can see this soliciting sexual knowledge in a very, very good example right here. Have you ever heard of Dave's Lemonade? I love Dave's Lemonade so much. He's great. But he does commentary on To Catch a Predator. But he goes through the chat logs between the predators who've showed up at the Sting house in order to have sex with minors, and then the decoy, the perverted justice decoy. It's who's, in this case, pretending to be the child that then invites the predator over to the Sting house. But what Dave's Lemonade does is he goes through and he does commentary on these chat logs and then on the confrontation with Chris Hansen. So what we can see in these chat logs, in a huge amount of them, is this soliciting of sexual knowledge. And you can see it really well here because we know these men are predators. That is not a question. Okay? You can see the whole video interviews with them. Everything is public knowledge. Like, this is undebatable. And what you can see is the same thing, the same solicitation of sexual knowledge, where they will effectively ask the child about their previous sexual history, ask for details, ask for whatever information they can get, because this is effectively smut for them to be able to read the child confiding in this experience. Not only does it give the offender something to read and then fantasize about, but it additionally really emphasizes to the offender this innocence that they want to prey upon. When a child discusses a sexual experience or their period or any other kind of very personal thing like this, the child's innocence and naivety is going to come through in these descriptions. It's going to come through when they talk about these things because the kid's embarrassed. Nobody wants to talk about their periods when they're like 13. Are you kidding? I don't even want to talk about it now. So all of this, and especially when it comes to sexual experiences, likely there's a lot of confusion, naivety, and innocence here. And that comes through in these messages, which just increases the the gratification that the predator gets from reading these. And I want to also emphasize, none of this ever has to leave, technology. You don't have to ever physically do anything in order for this to be harmful, okay?
So these are the chat logs from To Catch a Predator, the episode with Lorne. Lorne is a 37-year-old man in Tennessee. He believed that he was talking to a 13-year-old girl named Kayla. However, instead, thankfully, it was a decoy. He showed up to the sting house, conversation with Chris Hansen, yada yada, you know how it goes. However, this is his chat log, and I thought that this would be a great example to go through. So he says, hi, age, sex, location, please. She says, hi, 13, female, Kentucky. I said, wow, you're just a young one, huh? A little cutie, too. If nobody will talk to you, sweetheart, you can talk to me. I'm a good guy. I have 2 nieces your age. So right off the bat, trying to come across as innocent, as nice, like he's got the best of intentions. She says, really? What's your age, sex, location? I say, well, I should say I had 2 nieces your age when I lived in Washington State. They were your age. They're a little older now, but it still feels to me like they're your age. I'm 36, male, Nashville. Oh, Nashville, cool. You must be bored if you're on the internet. Unless you think it's fun, lol. That's me. Those are my 2 dogs. He said, the black one is Bud, and the little white one is Daisy. She said, aw, they're cute. He said, I have a cam too if you'd like to see me on cam. You can see Bud on cam too. I gave Daisy away to my nephew before I moved to Nashville. She said, aw, you gave her away? He said, yeah, I wasn't very happy to, but I thought it'd be best for her, because my nephew and his wife have a dog just like her. She says, cool. He says, did you get the other 2 pics I sent you? She said, of your dog? Yeah. He says, okay, want to see me on cam? She says, sure. Then he says, look at those big blue eyes. You're so cute. LOL. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. This chat log is 178 pages long. This is the longest chat log I've ever seen. So I scrolled down a little bit. Then he says, you must really enjoy talking to me, LOL. Yeah, you're fun to talk to. Cool. I never let my nieces go into any chat rooms, LOL. Why? He says, they used to get mad at me because of it too. Because they talk a lot about sex and stuff in them. Oh. He said, it bothered me a lot then. Now I'm just come to realize it's just a part of growing up. Which is the most wild thing to me, because that's exactly what he's doing with somebody younger than his nieces. He would not let his nieces go into chat rooms because he was afraid that they would be talking to somebody exactly like him. In his mind, he does not see himself as a part of the group of predators that he tries to protect his nieces from. So a little bit further on down the log, a couple hours later, Lauren asks Kayla, has anyone else sent you a message besides me from the chat room? She said, yeah, but I closed them, LOL. He said, LOL. She said, what they mean by a perv, what's that? Lauren says, LOL, okay, I'll tell you. It's when they talk about sex. Some people think it's perverted. She said, K. He said, in other words, that's all they want to talk about. Know what I mean now? She says, K, I guess. They want to talk about it. He says, yep, a lot. Still, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to choose this chat log, because it takes a very long time for him to, at least in comparison to other predators, to start with the sexual conversations. So this is just so crazy to me, because he's really acting protective, and if we didn't know that he was soliciting sex from her, it would seem like a normal thing to say. However, he's acknowledging that it's weird, and he's surprised that she and her also 13-year-old boyfriend went to each other's houses. He said, LOL, where's mom and dad? Not home. Don't tell. Did you do anything else with him? LOL. I'm not going to tell. Who would I tell? I don't know your parents. LOL. She said, oh yeah, LOL. Lauren said, you did? LOL, what did you do? She said, did what, huh? He said, oh, you missed one of my questions there. She said, I did. What was it? He said, I asked you if you did anything else with him. She said, we watch movies, go to the mall, eat, places, stuff like that. And then Lauren has to clarify, because again, he's talking to a 13-year-old who doesn't understand his implications. And he says, I mean, when you were kissing. Like just kissing and hugging, he used to hold my hand. He said, okay, good. Because some kids your age have done a lot more than that. She says, yeah, I know. And this is where we will really see soliciting of sexual information. And as we go, he does something unique here, where he really switches it up. So he'll ask her about her life, ask her about her dogs, talk about his nieces, talk about his family. Now, this is where it gets so insane. And here's exactly what I'm discussing. And this is really the same thing we see with Colleen, just in a much more discreet. He says, how much do you know about what's done with kissing and other stuff? LOL. She said, what's to know about kissing? You just kiss. Lauren said, LOL. Never mind, I won't ask anymore. I love your innocence. It's so cute. And you have to know in his mind, he's planning to take that innocence away from her. She says, huh? He says, LOL. Did you get lost there? She said, yeah, kinda. He said, LOL, okay. Do you want me to explain it to you? She says, yeah. He said, okay. Innocence is when you don't know anything about sexual stuff. She said, oh. He said, I think it's so adorable. She said, what's so adorable? You think I'm dumb? He says, no, not at all. You're a very smart girl. What's adorable is that you don't know much about that stuff yet, and that's very awesome because it means you're using your head, and we'll find out when it's time. She sent him a smiley face. Then he says, did I get you wondering about that stuff now, though? She said, yeah. He said, uh-oh, LOL. I ruined it. I'm sorry. She said, ruined what? He said, ruined your innocence about it. And then they continue talking for a very long time and for multiple days. And he continues to, the sexual stuff is amped up, but again, he's playing this protector role, this it's a joke role, this is easy, you can talk to me about these things, I'm looking out for you. At the same time, he's admiring and complimenting her innocence because that is what turns him on, because he is a predator, because this is the way his mind works. Yet at the same time, he cannot connect the dots.
What do you think ought to happen?
I think I should go to counseling and get off the internet.
You should go to counseling and get off the internet. Did you ever say to yourself, hey man, I got a problem here?
No, because I never thought I did.
You never thought you did? Does this incident make you think that perhaps you have a problem?
He does not feel in his heart, and you can tell through these messages, that he is the monster that he is. He has no idea.
I can do something that I can't do that. Oh my God.
Well, do you ever watch television much? You ever watch a program called Dateline NBC? Well, there's something I gotta tell you. I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story. Now you're free to walk out of this house right now. But if there's anything else you want to say, now would be the time to say it.
Understand that maybe there should be some boundaries there. There were times in the DMs when I would overshare details of my life, which was really weird to me. I haven't done that for years, you see, because I changed my behavior and I took.
He's taken to the local police station where his car is searched.
My reputation's deceased.
Another thing is introducing sexual content. So typically a groomer, the person who is grooming the child, will be the first to ever explain sexual things to them. They will be their sexual teacher. Kids, when they aren't being groomed, right, they will learn about sex from their friends at school, maybe from their parents, the birds and the bees talk, maybe from a movie or a TV show, but for the most part, they're going to be learning it from their friends, right? I know I did. You learn it all from your friends. And your friends are your age. So you have like a shared innocence and a shared lack of understanding of this stuff, and you learn it together normally, right? When you're learning it from a groomer, they are teaching you these things. You think they're joking with you about it. You think maybe, oh, it's just funny. Oh, this is, humor, inside joke. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but that's what they think. But in reality, they're teaching you, and you look back and you realize that you learned everything you know about sex, which your knowledge will likely be way more advanced, much more aligned with that of an adult, a young adult, than any of your friends, any of your peers at school, right? All of the other 12 and 13-year-olds who don't know about sex and are just now learning like innuendos and things like that. I remember I used to think the F word was fack. F-A-C-K? But the kid will notice that they have a significant knowledge gap with their friends who don't understand this and see this in such a naive and innocent way compared to the way they see it, which is much more well thought out and much more in line with the way an adult would joke about sex or know about sex. This is a major red flag, and it's also something that distances the child from their peers. It's something that will lead the child to seek out older people, to be friends, to be associates, because they'll feel mature. These things being talked to with them by adults make them feel like they're more mature than their friends. This will likely further isolate them from people that they should be around. And the groomer is, again, intentionally doing this. Maybe not in their awareness, but they're intentionally doing it. It's important to remember that children are naive and so innocent. These sexual games to them just look like games because they don't understand what's happening. And this can lead to such a serious inner pain and conflict that comes from something they don't understand isn't innocent. They're being hurt, they don't know why, they love this person's hurting them, this person's gross, no, I'm gross because I was talking to them, and then that can lead to them literally self-harming because they miss the offender, or because they're mad at themselves because they blame themselves for the offender having gotten in trouble. The harm that this stuff causes is so serious and so severe, and my words to you, if you are younger and you have a creator or an influencer or somebody online that is making group chats or talking to you personally that is significantly older, there is absolutely nothing that this person can gain from that relationship. I do believe that children have a lot of knowledge. Children can teach us things all the time. I have 12 nieces and nephews, and I learn things from them every day. But adults and children should not be able to be friends in that way because there is such a gap in life experience. You don't have the same problem. Like, what are you even talking about? What do you even talk about? Like, are you ranting to your divorce to a 12-year-old? How much sympathy can they provide? They don't understand that. They don't even know, like, they've never been married. They can't relate. They can't take you out to the bar for a couple drinks to get your mind off it. What are you getting from this? So if you're a parent or you're a child, I want you to ask yourself what you're getting from this, what your child is getting from this, or why this person is suddenly trying to be your best friend if you're a parent. Red flag, because nobody famous needs to go look at fan accounts, scroll through fan accounts and contact those children. They should have other things to do, right? I mean, if I was a millionaire, you bet your ass I wouldn't be talking to kids online. What? Are you kidding? No. This is never the child's fault. The child never can initiate and cannot consent and does not want this. And I don't believe that this results, I think it results in a feeling of lost innocence, but I want you to know that you're not any less valuable if you've been through this or if you're going through this, and it is okay to cut these relationships out if you are able to. If you are able to, because any of the career opportunities that they've promised you, any of the gifts they've sent you, anything they, no matter how much they confide in you and tell you that they genuinely just love you, you have to remember it's not innocent, it's not good, this person is not good to you, and it's not safe for you. For the most part, I just kind of wanted to talk about all this because I think it's something that we really just can't recognize and something that's so new, but I do think is going to become a much bigger thing. So thank you so much for being here, watching this, listening to this, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Please be safe out there, okay?